You are a literal one-man army, facing the full force of the invaders. They don't know how screwed they are. I sat on the bridge, breathing slowly. Rushing water beneath calmed my thoughts, the rapids of Era's tears washing away unease. It was the only way they could really approach, being the single structure that bridged its violent barrier. A perfect point to test the strength given to me. I could hear it in the distance, over the sounds of rushing water, the marching boots of an army, invading our dear lands. I smiled to myself, though remained in my seated position. Let them come to me. Let them wonder why a single man bars their path. Hoofbeats came to me, clattering against the stone building. I opened my eyes, seeing a pair of lightly armored scouts on horses. Bows were drawn, arrows nocked and aimed at me. With a smile I stood, crossing my arms. One of them shouted, as his horse pranced a little, "Clear the path, or die." I slowly raised a hand, beckoning towards them. "Bring it on." As I did, the arrows were released, but they were too slow to my enhanced senses and reflexes. It was easy for me to reach out and snatch them from the air, eliciting a gasp from the scouts. I held them up, smiling wider. "Looks like they belong to you. Allow me to return them." In a blur of movement I threw them back. They flew through the air with deadly precision, far faster than they had come at me. Needy thunks sounded, as each buried itself in the chest of a scout. Their eyes widened, coughing, and clutching at their new ornamentation. I took a single step forwards. Their horses were bred for battle, the bravest and sturdiest of their kind. But they shied away from me, as most creatures did. They could sense the monstrosity of my body, instinct far surpassing any training they had. All it took was for me to threaten to step again, and their strained composure broke. I watched them run, moving back to the dead center of the roadway. Dead scouts returning on frightened horses would sow fear in their ranks. It would make them suspicious. When they saw me, they would suspect me. But they would also wonder who helped, as one person surely couldn't do that. With care I sat down, closing my eyes and listening once more. That one showing was barely an effort. I had done similar feats before. I wanted to truly test my limits now. Hopefully they would arrive soon. An hour later, and they were here. An army, 1,000 strong, arranged against the shores of a raging torrent. A single bridge, with a single defender. The numbers were surely against me. But I felt no fear, only anticipation. I could see them dithering, wondering what to do. They could tell I was dangerous, but I had no weapons. I was alone, with no cover. They knew there was something more to me, but they didn't know what. I just watched, letting their tension grow. Eventually they acted. A squad marched towards me, 20 blades in total. Behind them, a row of 10 archers lined up, preparing to rain hell upon me. Finally, a mage stood to their side, chanting softly. As he did, I saw their arrows glow, some red, others green. Those arrows came first, plummeting towards me like birds of prey. I raised up my hands, pulling on the techniques implanted from the natural order. Air swirled, as I clapped just once. From that clap, a burst of wind flew forth, scattering the flying twigs. I watched as they fell away, bursting into flames and globules of green liquid, hissing as it hit the ground. That single move made the squad pause, before charging. I let them come, falling into a defensive stance. As soon as they were within a couple of meters I moved, embracing the speed given to me. I shot towards them, punching one in their simple helmet. Metal crumpled around my fist, as blood sprayed through the eye holes and gaps. Leaning into it, I swung the limp body around, using it as a macabre flail. They were knocked backwards, the body staying for a few seconds before flying off. But I didn't stop. I flowed along, much like the river below. Armor was nothing against my blows, breaking bones and pulverizing flesh without issue. Weapons missed me by mere millimeters, as I wove in between each one. Even arrows failed to hit me, some hitting their own allies instead. The 20th soldier slowly fell, clutching a ruined windpipe. I twisted, feeling the arcane pathways carved into my body light up. From within, a mass of flame was called, condensed into a small red ball. My arm stretched out, pointing towards the archers. I felt the power leave, flying through the air. The mage cried out, summoning a bubble of gray around him. The archers weren't so lucky. The ball erupted in a blaze of heat, mystical elements lingering to cause their clothing to burst of additional flame. They screamed, skin melting almost instantly from the onslaught. It delighted me. This was everything I had been promised. The months of torturous procedures. The long nights of fighting to contain myself. The lives etched into my own. All for this. It was perfect. In one hand, I summoned a bow, almost the size of a ballista. In anyone else's hands, it would be impractical. But I grew my body to match, summoning arrows the size of pikes, but thicker and denser. I drew one back, its purple condensed mana humming. It sung to me, calling for me to release it. Who was I to deny a weapon its purpose? The arrow flew true, piercing through 5 soldiers before disappearing. Another soon joined it, spreading death to those nearby. I could feel their morale shaking with each impact, wondering what to do. This was the only viable path. They had to get past me. An order was given, as I loosened more into their midst. They charged me, seeking to bury me beneath their numbers. I laughed, letting my bow shatter, shrinking down as it formed 2 glowing swords. With them in hand I leapt forwards, laughter turning to cackles. This was what I wanted. I carved through in a whirlwind of executions. My sword sliced clean through meat, bone, and armor as if it were nothing. Bodies piled up, to be thrown over the side to make more room. I danced between their attacks, cutting and stabbing. Death hung over me like a cloud, looming larger with each kill. I could feel their resolves breaking, some choosing to run back instead of facing me. A lone fighter, stopping an army. My laughing grew more manic, the fervor gripping me. More. I needed more. Horns sounded, signaling something. A retreat? No, I couldn't let them go. They turned to run, and I followed. I charged into their camp, killing more and more. They abandoned each other, supplies and equipment to get away. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. The power within demanded to be used, and I would use it. I would use it all. This army could not survive.